So we're live, so we have to say ship full of bombs over and over again. Boxy, would you mind?
Ship full of bombs.
Ship full of bombs. There you go. That's lovely. So we are live at the moment, guys. The show's about to
fantastic.
start.
I was expecting your sort of Arabic music to come.
Oh, the
in
Arabic
first.
music will be coming very shortly. But at the moment, we had a CD which said "Ship full of bombs" over and over again, but we've lost that. So hence, we're doing a kind of live a cappella "Ship full of bombs."
Okay.
Boxy, if you wouldn't mind.
Ship full of bombs.
Ship full of bombs, indeed. Patrick, if you'd like to chip in.
Ship full of bombs.
Ship full of bombs. John, do you fancy one of those?
Ship full of bombs.
Very nice
Ship
too.
full of bombs.
Ship full of bombs, indeed. I think, are we near to 8 o'clock?
We're getting there, yeah. You can go if you want.
No problem at all.
1959.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Harbour Bazaar.
Now, of course, like all real-life experience story, this also begins once upon a Tito. And Happiness Stan, whose life evolved in the ephemeral colour dreamy most, had his pure existence and this being in a deep joy of the multicolour of the rainbow. Oh, yes, his home is a Victoriana Sharabold. This is a four-wheelful ollop out the back grove. Now, as Eve did his deep approachy, his eye on the moon, all time, sometime, deep joy of a full moon scintillating dangling in the heavenly bode. But now only half. Oh, blow your cool, man, he do this deep thoughtless. What is the folly of this half disappearing of the moony most? And as the light did a scintillating change through timely most, stop it still, and he did a deep thoughtless. What? Absolutely smash and flake it he was. So, gathering all behind in the hintermost, he ploddy forward into the deep thundermold of the complicated foray to sort this one out, matey. Where at, man, he thought us. Where at, man? Oh, dear.
Good evening. My name's Stephen Hastings. You are listening to the Harbour Bazaar from Ship Full of Bombs. That's www.sfob.co.uk. Broadcasting live once again from upstairs at the Railway Hotel in Southend, probably the finest hostelry you can find in this area. Welcome everybody for this evening. The scented tent is open. The scented tent, Boxy.
Yes, smells nice in here.
Thank you very much indeed. We have a rule, we keep it that side of the desk as we said earlier. So what are we doing this evening? Well, we have got a quite fantastic celebration of the Small Faces, and also on the way looking at the immediate records catalogue and their influence have you too. So we're going to be taking a journey from the very beginnings of the band. We're going to be looking at some of the big, some of the obvious, some odd curios that are going on in there as well. Tracking through, finishing halfway about the show, listening to our classic album this month, which is going to be very obviously Ogden's, which is that Small Faces opus from 1968. Before we roll into the second half of the programme, where we'll be looking at some of the later elements of the band, some of the solo projects of Ronnie Lane, obviously Steve Marriott, and all involved, and some curios and some things around the edges. So that's what you've got in store. Hope you're going to enjoy it. I've got some fabulous guests in the studio. We have from the Frogs, we have both Matt and Pat McNamara.
Hello.
And I'm actually very, very pleased to be joining us. We have a let's just say a small faceless specialist, a man who's hopefully going to be sharing an awful lot with us this evening in terms of small faces tracks you probably haven't heard, or heard them in the way that you're going to hear them this evening. So very delighted that John Hellier is in the studio. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Good stuff. So sometimes you have to start with root run, you have to go big, you have to go obvious, and this is where we're going to start today. It's what you're going to do about it by the Small Faces.
I want you to know that I love you, baby. I want you to know that I care. I'm so happy when you're around me, but I'm sad when you're not there. Sing the song now. What you gonna do? Oh, yeah. What you gonna do? Tell the truth. What you gonna do? Oh, now. What you gonna do about it? I want you to give me your sweet, sweet kisses. I want you to hold me tight. I want
there we go. First 2 tracks on the show. Obviously, Small Faces. What you're going to do about it? Starting off, and then over to our first track of our sort of featured album as well this month. New release from Sharon Jones and the Dapkins, which came out about 2 weeks ago. Nice bit of retro soul there, and that was a track called Retreat. So we have another couple of tracks from the album later on in the show. But first, let's talk to our guests first of all. So we've got Pat and Matt over here. Actually, it's Matt and Pat. I said it the wrong way round, and now I'm pointing it round again. So, Small Faces, guys. Obviously, coming up to 20 years of the Frogs as well. What's your take on the band?
Fantastic.
It's the whole package for me. The sound, the look, the voice, the energy, and the fact that they're all the same size. Which,
I did want to get to that point back, because I've said this on the show before. One of the most fabulous things I think you've ever said to me is you like bands where there isn't disproportionate heights.
Yeah.
So if the bass player is significantly taller than the guitarist,
Nirvana is just a no-go for me. I just can't get past that.
It really is about the height differentials.
Yeah, it's wrong.
No problem at all.
I could never be a member of a band then.
Well, George,
George,
our 6'6"
you've just got to
producer
find a
there.
load of giants to form a band with.
You're
I'll be fine with that.
You'll be right, yeah.
And so how did you get into the band first of all? What was your introduction?
Well, I was going back to when I was at school, really. I swapped a donkey jacket for a Small Faces compilation from one of the Rayleigh mods, Bob Elaine. I don't know if he's still got the donkey jacket, but he's in the building game, so he may well have.
Maybe I got some wear out of it, Pat.
I was just saying to John before the show started, I was sort of listening to the Jam and the music of the 80s that I could sort of connect with and identify with, and then sort of going back and sort of getting that introduction into the 60s sound. It was quite a shock when you first put it on, because it was so raw and full of life and full of energy. It just thought that my ears weren't sort of calibrated to sort of hearing stuff like that. So it was almost like hearing punk for the first time, putting on that early sort of Decca period Small Faces stuff. So that was how I sort of.
And I think if you don't mind me saying, there's a couple of their tracks as well through the years. Seeing obviously. I remember the first Frogs gig over at Rayleigh attending. Do you know what I mean? 307 years ago.
Was that on Castle Road? Was that?
That was yeah,
that was the first one.
Yeah. 17 people and.
Yeah, it was just hired a village hall out for our mates, didn't we? Just before Christmas, I think it was, and it sort of all went from there, really.
Because I think the track "Tell Me Have I Ever Seen You," I've heard more by you than by them, and I think there's a couple of tunes particularly that I can't hear them as Small Faces tracks. They are Frogs tracks as far as I'm concerned.
Was that the second song we ever learnt? I've got a feeling we learned.
Yeah, maybe. I've got a feeling Steve's right. We've probably played it more times than the Small Faces.
Yeah.
We've never played any PRS either. So.
There you go.
It's probably not the place to admit it.
No, I would say that's probably still on that one.
Right, okay. We've never played that song, and
John,
we've never heard of Small Faces.
But obviously, John, obviously with yourself, you're very obviously entrenched in the band, the music, and what's your? Tell us a little bit about your involvement with the band and the whole scene.
Okay, before the Small Faces, I was only ever really interested in original American R&B versions. British bands didn't do a thing for me at all, but the Small Faces changed all that. But be quite honestly, with me, it was more about the image at the time than the music. The music was good, of course it was, but they look so good, it was 1965, I was really into the mod scene, as was pretty much everybody else of my age at that time. And the Small Faces come along and they just look so good. And I used to go out every Saturday morning. I'd buy all the girly magazines like Fab 208 and Jackie.
I keep those.
Going somewhere dangerous there.
just for the pictures of the Small Faces, and I'd end up just putting them on my bedroom wall. Strange.
Oh no, that's all good.
Perhaps the sort of thing you'd expect perhaps the girly fans to do, but that wasn't really the case. Small Faces always had a big sort of male following, and I'd buy these magazines, I'd look at the pictures, then I'd go up west trying to buy a shirt like the one that Ronnie was wearing on the front cover, or a jacket like the one Steve had on in the middle page spread. They became everything to me, sort of clothes-wise and image-wise. And, of course, the music was great. The first single was great, although I favoured the B-side, What's a Matter Baby, which was an old Timmy Euro cover. And even to this day, that's one of my very, very favourite Small Faces tracks. That's absolutely fantastic.
But in terms of as well, obviously with obviously a lot of releases of the sort of Marriott material now. You've been obviously with Whopping you as well.
Yeah, now sort of later years, I've got a big connection, with particularly with the Steve Marriott estate. But back then in '65, if somebody had told told me that I'd be doing that in 30 years' time, you know, I'd have laughed my head off. You know, I was just a fan, you know.
How big were they at the time?
How big were they?
I mean, I always think in some way, this is something I've spoke to Pat about through the years as well.
Yeah.
In terms you've got, you know, from that period, you've obviously got the Who, you've got the Stones, Beatles and what have you, and then you've got, as the kind of big overarching names, but then you've got Yardbirds, obviously Small Faces, Kinks, what have you. You've got the Kinks we could nudge up, do you know what I mean? But
I think some of the music press sort of, once they started having a few hit singles, then tended to put them down as a bit of a poor man's Who, but they were never that. I mean, after the third single, the big one, I mean, Sha-La-La-Lee, I mean, obviously they did become very much a top of the pops type band, because I mean, you know, as I said, that they look so good, you know, but you know, I personally never doubted, you know, the talent they had musically as well. But I mean, the look was everything, and of course they did attract this big female following once the hit singles started coming. So it did get pretty hysterical. And but by 1966, it was like Beatlemania all over again. It really was. I mean, you know, the guys in the band couldn't walk the streets of London, you know, without being sort of besieged by lots of girl fans. And in later years, they used to say how terrible it was, but it wasn't terrible.
Oh, who's
you know, they were
dislike
young
that?
guys. They loved it.
I mean, Boxer, you've had this issue, haven't you, being harassed by younger fans and what have you? I mean, I know it has become a curse, I understand.
Well, I can't walk past the bowling club.
I'm sure the frogs have as well.
whistling.
You must have experienced it as well, yeah.
No.
These frogs, you know. But
well, we're fans.
No, it was like Beatlemania. I mean, Steve Marriott was. I mean, every sort of young guy in the street wanted to be Steve Marriott, and every young girl wanted to date Steve Marriott. He was that big, you know. And in fact, John Stevens in Carnaby Street even was selling Steve Marriott wigs. You know, I myself had my hair straightened. I used to have it permed in reverse to get it straight, you know, to get that Steve Marriott sort of curtains look, you know.
We all use straighteners now, Boxes. We know this has been revealed. This has been revealed on this. But mentioning things like John Stevens, that whole Carnaby Street one, I know how influential he was as a I wouldn't say shop owner. That's the wrong thing.
But a massive sort of mod stroke pop icon of the day. He really was.
Well, let's take it to the music. There was a couple of things you were saying about. We're talking about very, very early Steve Marriott sort of Small Faces tunes. This the first one we've got kind of queued up. Did you want to tell us what that was?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all the Small Faces wanted to be in the early days was the East End of London's version of Booker T and the MGs,
which isn't a bad ambition.
No, not at all. But that's what it was all about. Just how close they could get to Booker T and the MGs. But I think the first track we've got lined up, Stephen, is one that is actually pre-Small Faces. This is October 1964, and Steve was cutting demos in Regent Sound in Denmark Street for up-and-coming songwriters, and he's cut a track called Give All She's Got, which was written by a guy called Barry Mason, who in later years went on to write have hit records with people like Tom Jones and Elvis. But at that time, he was just trying to make it in the business, as was Steve, you know.
So what's this? Is he 64?
This is Steve. It's October 1964. Steve will be 17 years old, and quite honestly, he sounds like a middle-aged black man from Memphis.
Hey, let's hear the track. Looking forward to this one. This is new for me. Never heard it before, and you're hearing this. And I think a lot of people listening to Harbour Bazaar tonight, this is going to be a real treat. So let's hear that one.
Give all she's got, give all she's got, give all she's got. Show that girl a good time. Buy her fancy clothes. Come on, boy, now, do as I tell you, and she'll give all she's got, give all she's got, give all she's got, give all she's got. Don't you worry, 'cause she's in a hurry. For the bright lights, they go with a good time. Oh, and remember, wherever you take her, just give me you make her yours, and you won't be sorry. She'll be good to you. Come on, show that girl a good time. Yeah, she'll give all she's got, give all she's got, give all she's got, give all she's got. Oh, come on, show that girl a good time. And she'll give all she's got, give all she's got, give all she's got, give all she's got, give all she's got. You listen to me, baby, she's gonna give all she's got, give all she's got.
Now that, if you don't mind me saying, was a superb vocal. You know, a fantastic choice. Nice one, John.
Unknown 17-year-old from the East End, it was unbelievable, wasn't it?
I mean, what I think is interesting with him, and I think, again, you know, vocalist, him as a vocalist particularly, is, you know, there's always, I think earlier on, like Beatles, Stone stuff, it's so much a sort of blues influence, that's kind of, you know, R&B, and very influenced in that kind of way, whereas I think Steve Marriott particularly, I'll include Rod Stewart in this one as well, very much sort of Sam Cooke, that sort of soul, big shouty vocal. I think this is going to be something we return to as we kind of go through the band and play some tracks, and tonight, as you can hear, it's, you know, sometimes he does that kind of rinky-dink cockney thing, which I'm not, as to be honest, as keen on, but and then at the other half of him he's doing this great big soul vocal, sometimes on the same track. That's superb choice.
Well, Steve was very much a soul man. I mean, even back in 1964 he was well known around the East End of London for having the best record collection in the area,
because he started off as a child actor, wasn't it? Is that right?
He did. I mean, you know, at the age of 12 he was on the West End stage in Oliver, and he'd done lots of TV and films. He worked with people like Peter Sellers, and he'd done Dixon and Doc Green on the TV and in various things, and he was good at what he'd done. But I suppose, you know, he was a cheeky East End kid. You know, it was always going to be sort of limited. You know, by the time he got to 15, 16, he was starting to grow up, and those roles weren't going to be there anymore. So he decided to go into music, much against the wishes of his parents, I might add. You know, they wanted him to pursue the sort of acting role. So
the band were, you know, at East End. Obviously, when did they? What year did they get together, and what brought that on?
Well, 65. In pre-65, Steve had a band called Steve Marriott's Moments, which he was. Would you believe he was sacked from? He was sacked from the Moments. He didn't leave. He actually sacked. I mean, I could just sack a lead vocalist like that. Unbelievable.
Perhaps it was a height differential again.
I'm sure it's nothing to do with. It was obviously nothing to do with you know, music itself. But Steve was, you know, out of work, broke, took a part-time job in a local music shop. Ronnie Lane came in with his dad to buy a guitar, and Steve, using his persuasive ways, just told him not to buy a guitar, buy this bass. You know, guitarists are two a penny. You know, bass players will always get a job.
Hey, Pat, probably good words there. Matt, how do you feel about that statement?
Good advice, firm advice.
I think Steve just wanted to sell. I don't think he probably didn't mean that. He just wanted to sell.
Was that the J50 up the road to the Ruskin Arms?
Yeah. It was opposite the Ruskin Arms on the corner. But anyway, Steve struck up a friendship with Ronnie. Ronnie went back to Steve's mum's flat where Steve was living, and, you know, saw his record collection. They become good pals. Ronnie says to Steve, "We've got, you know, I'm in this band called The Outcasts. We've got a gig tonight over in South London. Why don't you come along?" So Steve goes along, jumps up on stage for an impromptu sort of jam, ends up smashing the piano up, doing his Jerry Lee sort of Marriott impersonations. And
again, Boxer, you've had trouble with that one, haven't you?
And Ronnie Lane's band get the sack from the band, get the sack from the regular gig that they had there. So you know, that they go home that night. They're just sitting around. I think they're sitting on the pavement outside, actually, just talking about what do we do next. And Ronnie said, you know, we've got to stick with this guy. You know, he's got us the sack from this pub, but stick with this guy and we'll go places. And that's how it started, really. I mean, Kenny Jones was already in Ronnie's band, so they had a drummer lined up, and Jimmy Winston was...
He was the original keyboard player, wasn't he? Well,
Jimmy was, he was the fourth member of the band. He wasn't actually keyboard player at the time, but he was a musician in the East End. He was 5 years older than Stephen Ronnie, or getting on for 5 years older. So they looked at Jimmy with a lot of respect at the time. He was a real face around the East End, you know, and he wasn't a great musician, but he was at least on par with Stephen Ronnie. He was, you know, he was okay. None of them were great musicians at the time, but the big thing in Jimmy's favour was that his parents ran a pub, the Ruskin Arms, so they had somewhere to rehearse, and his brother had a van, so they had somebody to take them.
Ruskin Arms, legendary venue, Boxy. We've been there ourselves.
Many times.
Many times. Iron Maiden's original pub as well, if I
That's
remember
right. I
rightly.
live over the road next door, Goldsmith Avenue.
I remember being involved with a psychedelic band who were called the Dreamweavers.
Yeah.
Probably not the best name in the world, but they weren't
Or the best
weren't a
band.
bad band. But I do remember them playing quite regularly at the Ruskin, and getting the money at the end of the night was always quite an interesting affair. You'd have to speak to the owner. I can't remember the owner's name, but you'd have to speak to his dad, and he's this really ancient man who was sort of stuck at the corner of the bar, and you had to approach him quite gingerly, and any chance we could have our, we have kind of played, would that be okay? And he just got quietly push it over.
Mr. Winston, was it?
Yeah, it was, I don't know who he was.
No,
but
that'd been a long while after.
but there you go, boy. And there you go, take your money. So let's have another track. John, you've been involved. You've got brought some fantastic music along this evening. One of the ones I think you just sang some Small Faces BBC sessions.
There's a track called Shake. I mean, Shake ended up being the Small Faces opening track for most of their live career, actually. I mean, it's an old Sam Cooke song. The Small Faces version probably lends more to the Otis Redding version. It's great. Yeah, let's have Shake.
And what's this on? You've said this is
it's a BBC Sessions album, which I helped produce in 1999 for a small label called Strange Fruit. Very good alternate versions of the familiar stuff.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's hear Shake.
Here's an up-tempo starter. It's a Sam Cooke composition, and this one's called Shake. It's by Small Faces.
Now, again, if you don't mind me saying, exclusive there on Harbour Bazaar, thank you so much. That sounds fantastic. Shake, obviously, by the Small Faces there. Live BBC session.
Live BBC session.
That's still available to buy at the moment, John?
That's probably not, but there's going to be an updated version very shortly, as there's more titles or more recordings come to light since that 1999 release.
And is that going to be coming out on your label?
No, unfortunately not. But it will be out within the next 12 months, I would think. Yeah.
Good stuff.
One, yeah, but I mean, the BBC sessions, you can still pick that up on Amazon, second-hand copies and eBay. It's still available.
That might be falling into my bag before the end of the show, John.
Yeah, there's a vinyl version as well, actually. Or there was. Yeah,
no problem. What do you reckon on that one, Pat?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a great tune to play. If you're knocking that out and you've got a good drummer, there's nothing better, really. I mean, we played that a few times. I've never thought of opening with it, Matt. I don't know what you think of that idea.
Next time, that's going to be at the top of the list, just in honour of the Small Faces.
Yeah.
Okay, well let's crack on with the music. Well, I'd like to play another. I mean, that's such a fantastic choice from the BBC sessions. But I'd like to play another track from that, if that's okay. This is what did we choose in the end? It was You Need
Loving, wasn't it?
You Need Loving. Yes, indeed. I like your style there, George. All action, all control. This is what comes from having a superb producer, rather marvellous. One of the things with this track, obviously you're going to recognise this if you've never heard it before. I'm sure you have heard it before. I hope you have. And if you haven't, well, I'm really pleased that this is the first opportunity you've had to hear it. And if I can introduce it to you in this way, well, I can't think of a better way to spend the evening. This is the Small Faces, You Need Loving.
And suddenly it's finale time. This is where we hear one more number from each of our guests on today's show. And first, the Small Faces, who say, You Need Love.
Oh, yeah. All right. What a time that I am fooling. Hey, woman, you need cooling. I'm gonna send you right back to schooling. All right. I'm even way down inside you. You know how, woman, you need loving. Yeah, loving. All right. I know you need loving, baby. Yeah. All right. You need loving. Oh, loving. Yeah, loving. Oh, loving. Woman, you need love. All right.
I sit here every day, looking at the sky, ever wondering why I dream my dreams away, and I'm living for today in my mind's eye. Things are clearer than before, showing me the way, asking me to stay. I'll never close the door to all these things and more in my mind's eye. Everybody
couple of tracks there. Obviously, in my mind's eye by the Small Faces, we've gone from something big, rolling, soulful, but again, a cracking vocal over to something which I think was a bit more sort of poppy, showing the other sort of the band there. So, where are we now? We're about 65, 66.
Yeah,
Signed to
65.
Decca, been picked up by Don Arden, who a very notorious 1960s manager. I think one step in from what would have been that sort of late 50s, early 60s impresario running the label.
Well, he's considered very notorious now, but I mean, back in the day, not really so. You know, I mean, he was considered Mr. Big. You know, the Small Faces signing for somebody like Don Arden was considered a real sort of feather in the cap, really. I mean, he really was probably the biggest manager in town.
I think he got a little maligned in the 70s. There was that situation when Jet Records was set up, and obviously...
lots of things have happened since then. But I mean, at the time, you know, the Small Faces thought it was the best thing they could do. And looking back on it now, I mean, it wasn't such a bad thing. I mean, Steve Marriott and Kenny Jones... will never have a bad word said about Don Arden, even to this day. Well, Steve's no longer here, but I mean, right up to the end anyway. Ronnie and Mac, quite the opposite. You know, they'll sort of put him down at every sort of opportunity. But I mean, most of it goes around the fact that they were only paid £20 a week.
Weren't they paid in clothes at one point as well?
They were.
Which, to be fair, I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be such a bad issue.
They had accounts in all the Carnaby Street shops, and I mean, can you imagine four guys going into the Carnaby Street shops? They weren't going to have one of this, one of that. They'll have one in every colour. You know, we were talking about shirts, leather jackets, you know, suits, one in every colour. I mean, they used to sort of fill the limousine waiting for them outside, you know, completely up with clothes. Lots of money. They lived in a townhouse in Pimlico, you know, everything paid for. They had a 24-hour chauffeur.
Very much living the life of the kind of pop star at the time.
Yeah, even when they were on tour, it was all like, you know, five-star hotels.
What's interesting for me,
they all had to be paid from somewhere.
Well, is that dichotomy between this big kind of pop stuff, and I go so many bands, and I think it shows up later when we're looking at sort of a bit more bluesy, sort of back to basics in some levels. When you get to kind of Humble Pie, there's very much a rejection of the pop side of the Small Faces.
Definitely,
but with things like Shalala Lee, I know I understand, sort of criticised the song afterwards, but at the time that must have been such a stepping stone into what their sort of personal fame and glory.
It was. Well. I mean, as I said earlier, you know, all they ever wanted to be really was Booker T and the MGs. So, you know, they even from an early stage, you know, they would put the singles down, and they never played any of those singles at any of their club gigs. See, there was two types of Small Faces gig. They'd do the pop package thing where you travel up and down the country with 4 or 5 other artists that were currently in the charts, and they'd play cinemas and theatres, and they'd do 20-minute sets, you know, and they would be forced to play the hit singles, but you wouldn't hear any of it anyway because you had the hysterical girly audience. But then on the other end, if you went to see them in a small club, i.e. the Marquee, you know, they wouldn't play those hit singles anyway. You know, they were still into the 15-minute Hammond organ sort of jams. You know, so there was two different types of live show.
I think that's kind of interesting. It's that sort of straddling both of really. But so on Decca, obviously big. How can you put it? Made the fame. Obviously, a huge band in that kind of sense. Obviously, was there any was there any difficulties between them? You often get that kind of period of time where someone's writing most of the songs and somebody else isn't. Or was it equally split in that kind of way? Well, it was Ronnie Lane and Marriott were the main writers.
You know, all the songwriting credits were Marriott Lane, but they very rarely wrote together. I think this is probably similar sort of instance to sort of Lennon, McCartney, and Jagger Richards. You know, they were generally either Marriott songs or Ronnie Lane songs. But you know, but they were all shown as Marriott Lane, you know. And during the Small Faces years, I mean, Steve was very much the man. You know, the last word always came down to Steve. You know, I think as years went on and as they got older, I think that role actually changed, because I think towards the end of their lives, you know, Ronnie was a lot more prolific with his songwriting than Steve. But going back to 1966, it pretty much revolved around Steve. During the Decca years, I think this all began to change once we get into Immediate, you know, which I think we're going to be coming on to later. We're going to
be looking at, just going to play one more track, sort of back end of this period of the Small Faces, really. Then we're going to shift on to Immediate. Yeah. I've been asked by a few people for requests for specific tracks, and the one that's come up the most, and I suppose Jay and Amy have both asked for this one as well. This is the Small Faces, and this is Talk to You.
many people trying to stop me getting through. The doorman, he just laughed, but I don't want no autograph. Now you listen to me, baby. All I want to do is talk to you. Talk. You know I didn't stop you doing things you wanted to do. But now it's gone too far. It looks like I'm losing you. I don't want sympathy. No. But please don't turn your back on me. Listen, baby, all I want to do is talk to you. Talk. I got to talk to you. I got to try and make you see just how very, very much you mean to me. Yeah. Would it be too much to try and jog your memory? You remember me, baby. I hope that I'm still part of your history. Now I don't want to share your car. No. Or stop you being a star. All I want to do, you know what I've got to do. Got to keep on trying.
We go, talk to you by the Small Faces. So, but here we are, Harbour Bazaar, ship full of bombs, celebrating Small Faces this evening, playing tracks from all through their kind of career, but at the same time carrying on with our What's in the Label feature as well, where this month it's quite logically a Media Records boxy.
I don't know too much about those. Could
Would you
give
like
us
to know a little bit more about Media Records?
Let me and the good people at home know a little bit more.
You can ask me. I'll give you 3 questions, and I'll do my very best to answer those questions for you.
So do I ask you 3 questions
Well, I think
to clarify? Okay.
The tables have been turned.
What collapsed Immediate Records?
Financial irregularities, shall we say, in about 1969.
Who was dipping their hand in the till?
The label was set up in 1965.
That was not a question. That was not a question.
Okay.
Answer the the Prime Minister.
The financial irregularities allegedly were by the notorious Rolling Stones manager, a gentleman named Andrew Loog Oldham.
Who listens to this show?
Who listens very closely to this show, who I'm a massive fan of, if you don't mind me saying. Again, it's interesting, actually, we've been saying about with Don Arden as a manager.
Yeah.
Don Arden would have been old school,
Where's the money?
Where's the money? Where's the money, Ronnie? Much more the impresario kind of style, where Loog Oldham came in very much of that new type of very flash manager who could have been in the band himself. So he's the same age as the band, much more of a hustler, doesn't follow rules particularly, but makes things happen. So
kind of like yourself, really.
Well, to be on Boxy,
as a football agent.
As a football agent, Boxy, the career never took off to the level that we'd have always enjoyed, really. But no, seriously, it was resting in that bank account. It was just resting in that bank account. So famously, just a potted history. Andrew Loog Oldham, publicist, worked for Decca, I think, wasn't it? Did some stuff with Brian Epstein.
Previously to that, he actually was publicising the Beatles.
He was with Epstein, wasn't he?
Very briefly. Before that, he'd actually worked with the likes of, Mary Quant. So he really cut his teeth getting around, sort of just being seen and sort of knowing people.
More famously, manager of the Rolling Stones.
Well,
he was their manager.
More famously, but previous to that, I mean, he was a bit of a mover
in
and
the Stones.
Because
obviously
at the time, George Gomelski would have been the manager of the Rolling Stones.
George Gomelski,
if you like, Boxy. He juggles as well. Again, Loog Oldham basically took Stones, essentially made them into the sort of anti-Beatles, made them what they kind of were, but very much was that, and I think played up to the role, that kind of fast-talking kind of hustler kind of figure.
He created them in his image, really, because before that they were kind of like a blues, like purist kind of act, not even an act, just kind of used to go around the blues circuit. And you see pictures of them prior to when Loog Oldham took over, and they don't look anything like they did afterwards, but when you see them post Loog Oldham, they look fantastic. Again, like the Small Faces, like John was saying. They got all this sort of dog-tooth trousers. They don't look uniform like, the Beatles did and other sort of bands of the time. They've kind of got their own individual look in a group context.
And again, looked kind of fantastic, if you don't mind me saying.
Yeah.
But basically, go back to your question, which you didn't ask me, was basically, which you wouldn't mind asking me once again.
Can I ask you again? Okay, question. Well, I'd like to ask Pat's brother, actually. I could never call him by his real name. But you said about the look. But I was wondering, because interesting bands are often criticised for their look, but was their look all down to themselves, or was there a consultant that would dress the band? Or how did that happen?
Well, we're talking about the small faces. I think, as John said, they kind of were given carte blanche to go shopping, basically. So
they were mods before they became the Small Faces, but they became a better dressed mod.
Was that the kind of
once the band
psychedelic
had
thing,
formed.
wasn't it?
Well, they had a few bob in their pocket, yeah. I mean, pre-Small Faces, Steve would buy Fred Perry type shirts from Woolworths.
This is all very sort of.
They've got a few bob. He gets the label.
This is all very resonant, and when John was talking earlier about the clothes, it's very resonant of the Russells.
The trousers.
When everyone asks about the music, they don't want to talk about music. They want to talk about the trousers.
Well, I'll say Leggy Mountbatten was again in that history of great managers. Obviously, we've mentioned Don Arden, we've mentioned Andrew Goldman. We have to mention the Russells, Leggy Mountbatten here as well. Unfortunately, as we know, Wentz became a retail chemist.
In Australia.
In Australia, yes, indeed. But there you go, that's a diversion. So, Marriot Records, this is what we was going to talk about. 1965, set up by, was it Terry Calder, I believe, and Andrew Lou Goldman. Obviously a great label, a really influential label. And one of the things I didn't realise quite so much, I think, been putting some stuff together for this show, is there's very much a London sound that's associated with Marriot, very much a kind of mod sound. But as much as anything else, I think in that big rolling piano kind of going on there, and again, almost what became that kind of 70s blue-eyed soul. There's that kind of series of vocalists on there who just basically give it plenty. So I think there's a sound of a type of band which you can trace firmly back to Marriot. Their first big success, I think, they financed off of they was it Hang On Sloopy, wasn't it, if I remember rightly, was the first thing to come out, which did well for them. But the act that I kind of associate, the singer I associate with both Small Faces and Marriot is P.P. Arnold, and so consequently we're going to go, first cut is The Deepest.
I would have given you all of my heart, but there's someone who's torn it apart, and he's taken almost all that I've got. But if you wanna try to love again, baby, try to love again. But I know first cut is the deepest, baby. I know first cut is the deepest. 'Cause when it comes to being lucky, he's cut. When it comes to loving me, he
going on? You've been away for too long. You can't come back. Think you are still mine. You're out of touch, my baby, my old-fashioned baby. I said, baby, 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 you're out of time. Well, baby, 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 you're out of time. I said, baby, 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 you're out of time. Yes, you are, yes, you are. I said, you're out of time. Without a doubt, 'cause baby, 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 you're out of time. You thought you was a clever girl, giving up your social world. You can't come back, be the first in line. Oh yeah, you're obsolete, my baby, my poor favorite baby. I said, baby, 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 you're out of time. Well, baby, 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 you're out of time. I said, baby, 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 you're out of time. Yes, you are now. Yes, you are. I said, you're out of there without a doubt. Oh, baby, 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 you're out of time. Yeah, baby, 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 you're out of time. I say, baby, 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 you're out of time. Yes, you are, you let down. Yes, you are. I said you let down. Out of there, out of down, 'cause baby, 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 you're out of time. Baby, 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 you're out of time. You thought you was a clever girl.
There we go, coming to the end. There we go, Chris Farlow, Out of Time. Everyone's kind of talking up here as well. Hey, we've just got an entry. Dave Dulake, how are we doing? Proprietor of the Railway Inn. I think everyone should be upstanding for Dave just for a second.
I didn't stand up really.
There you go. You're listening to the Harbour Bazaar on Ship Full of Bombs with me, Stephen Hastings, with my guests, John Hellier. We've got Pat and Matt McNamara from the Frogs, and now joining us we've got Dave Dulake as well, and obviously Mr. Box. And on my left here as well we have producer George. So what have we been covering this evening? Where we're doing an overview, we're sort of a trawl through a celebration of the small faces, looking at the immediate label where we just had a couple of tracks from, and then we're looking in back end of the show, very much looking at the post careers for the members of that kind of band. So, chaps, what's your views on the immediate thing? I think the conversation's been turning to sort of, it was Billy Nichols, wasn't it, if I remember rightly, from a few moments ago?
Yeah, we're going to come on to a Billy Nichols track from the album Would You Believe? But I mean, you've just passed round a discography, haven't you, in terms of the singles and albums that have come out, and it's interesting just to scan those. The one thing that jumped out for me, Dave, was I'm Your Witch Doctor, John Mayall. I didn't know that was on Immediate. Obviously know the track very well. Something that you sing yourself, don't you, when we in the band. Yeah, I mean it's the only John Mayall track. There was no album or anything, just a single. So that was quite interesting.
So I mean, who else was on there as well? I mean, Armin Corner was on there. I mean, there's some big names. I mean, I'm seeing early Groundhogs on there, early Fleetwood Mac, first Rod Stewart releases as well. And I'm a big champion of your man Rod Stewart, if you don't mind me saying. I was going to try and fit something in from that. Obviously, Small Faces.
There was actually a track on recorded on immediate by Jimmy Tarbuck of all people.
I did
Was you
read
aware
that.
of
I was quite concerned. I have issues with the Tarbuck.
A British version of the Beach Boys, Tony Rivers and the Castaways, one single only. You know, there's quite a lot of sort of one-offs.
What were the British Beach Boys called?
A band called Tony Rivers and the Castaways. They were considered to be the British Beach Boys. They were basically a Beach Boys.
Have you heard of the French
cover
Beach
band.
Boys?
No.
Les Garçons
Les Garçons de Plage. We're back to the Ruckles again here, Matt. I like it. I think they give once.
Sorry, it just keeps on. I've just gravitated towards them.
No,
we will be doing something on the Ruttles at some point, and I guarantee you will be in for that show,
we'll
my friend. There we go. So, I mean, in terms of the Billy Nichols one, I mean, I don't know that much about him other than some of the stuff that you've shared with me, Pat. I mean, I mentioned the Beach Boys there too.
Yeah.
My understanding is he was trying to do a kind of British Pet sounds, you know.
Pat wants to tell you about Billy Nichols, but Billy was actually employed on a 9-to-5 basis, basically, just to sit in a little office and write songs. That was his initial role, you know, and. Andrew Loog Oldham, being the big Beach Boys fan that he was, you know, wanted to create an English version of Pet Sounds, and hence, how are you, Pat? To the Billy Nichols "Would You Believe" thing, you know.
Well, it was an album I was aware of, and how rare it was. I mean, you were just telling us the story of the rarity, and that it was right at the back end of the immediate.
Yeah, it was recorded. It was pressed in very limited numbers, but never came out. You know, hence the fact that it's worth thousands of pounds.
See, that was the
today.
kind of thing I didn't know it hadn't actually
It
came
never
out. I saw
actually
the value
no,
of the early vinyl, but even like CD reissues are quite something as well.
A few sneaked out, like promos and whatever. And they were basically the only ones that ever existed. You know, I mean, to this day, you know, there are copies around, original 60s copies around, which go for, I mean, even 10 years ago it was going for £2,000-3,000, so probably a lot more than that now.
If Al's listening, you know what you've got to do.
Simply down to, you know, the rarity of that, you know, that piece of plastic was obviously the music's been available. I mean, Billy Nichols actually bootlegged the album himself in the 90s on his own label. He didn't own the rights to it. Yet he put it out on his Southwest Records, you know, and he'll openly admit that it's a bootleg.
I somehow kind of feel that the rights to that once again return to Andrew Loog Oldham. There we go.
Let's just hope he's not listening.
No, John. I don't get me wrong. I'm a massive fan, real hero of mine. When I was a younger man, to be honest, I think he's a very inspirational character.
Yeah.
So,
but you've lined up a track from that album.
yeah, what are you going to choose for us there, Patrick?
Well, I've chose. I know you wanted a London sort of theme, and there was an obvious track on there, London Social Degree, and I haven't gone with that because I really like the track "Girl from New York" that has got Steve Marriott playing the lead guitar on that, and you can also hear him on the backing. And when I was just asking John, there was a story I read in the liner notes of that album that Marriott got so into the track in the studio that he was playing it, recording on a Les Paul, that he snapped the neck off the guitar while he was playing the lead and recording the track. And I just said to John, is there any truth in that? And it was
First I've heard of it.
Yeah.
I thought
there's your answer.
I'm only his boy.
But you have a listen and listen to the way he's playing lead guitar and tell me if you think it's possible.
Like your style, Patrick. Let's hear the track. That's a pretty awesome track, if you don't mind me saying, Patrick.
It's my
And
style,
did you hear the next snapping?
I think it faded out just before that happened.
No problem at all. Quite prescient, actually. We didn't realise it when we put the show together, but obviously, you know, in Mojo this month they followed the Harbour Bazaar lead, and they've had a bit of a special on the Small Faces, and equally the Marriot there too. We're going to play a track from that's actually on that CD at the moment, which is I was quite interested. And Matt, we spoke about this one, the fact that Nico was on there as well. I really wasn't aware of that.
That's
So
right. It's very unusual, isn't it? Very sort of strange connection. I mean, she went on to become a member of, maybe an honorary member of the Velvet Underground.
Of course.
But there's also another link with the Velvet Underground is when who was the violinist in the Underground?
John Cale.
John Cale. He came to London, sort of 65, 66, and What You Gonna Do About It was out. And that middle section where Steve does the feedback and all the kind of thing on the tremolo arm, I think it used to call it vacuum cleaning, didn't it? They used to call it that because it made that kind of weird sound. That was very influential in the Velvet Underground, using sort of the guitar less as the feedback and using it more as a sort of a tone generator, the guitar and the amp, than just sort of musical. That was very. He admitted that was very inspirational, influential in what they did later on.
And what a band they are, if you don't mind me saying.
Yeah.
Superb stuff. Well, this is I'm Not Saying by Nico. About that in terms of I don't know, as you say, the kind of the vocals on there and just the whole production with it. It's something you hear it so much in sort of later bands with influence on this kind of period. I mean, Dave, what's your angle on that one particularly?
Yeah, we're just saying as long as it sounds a little bit like somewhere across between like the Seekers with a bit of German sort of twist, and there's a bit of Marianne Faithfull in there. And I don't know, where would that be recorded? Is that Regent sound? That's got a big sort of lush string sort of
yeah.
going on.
But you were saying as well with that one as well, with Immediate, Matt, obviously you've got Jimmy Page very involved with, you know, as a sort of a producer and sort of session player on a lot of this stuff too. I know the Small Faces themselves are playing a lot backing on this sort of material as well. So there is something, although obviously she goes off to America and does the Velvet Underground thing. There's something still very rooted in that. And we've been talking about London at that kind of time. And I asked some of the guests coming in this evening, give us something from that kind of period. So one of the things we wanted to play just a moment, just lining up, is a track that Matt chose called Soho, which I'd like a few people to sort of guess who it's actually by. But before we get there, you are listening to Harbour Bazaar with me, Stephen Hastings, on Ship Full of Bombs. We've got some fantastic shows coming up this week as well. Where are we? I think on Monday we have Tom Burgess doing his Shangri-La show. Tuesday, Daryl Eastley Spectacular, and that is one to listen to, because calling in on Tuesday, very, very fortunate to have Peter Hamill, ex of Van der Graaf Generator, sort of calling in. Obviously the cult artist, so he's going to be joining Daryl on the phone on Tuesday. Wednesday we have the Captain Owl. It's the indie show, so I'm not sure what his album is choosing, but that's always a marvellous listen for those indie types with the striped shirts amongst you. And then I think on Thursday we've got Gold Sounds, and then the other one to look forward to is Sunday the 9th, which is next Sunday following me. We have those marvellous gentlemen from Weird Scene doing their slightly odd show from up here at the Railway Hotel in Southend. But moving away from Railway Hotel in Southend just for a second, but the spirit of it is in there, because we're playing a track by the name of Soho.
Come walk the streets of crime and the coloured bright, the corners of love repute. See the dazzling nightlife grow beyond the dawn and burning in the heart of Soho. Hear the market cries and see their words displayed through the window of your soul. Watch the naked dance that spins before your very eyes, naked like the sun. Step inside women before, have drunk the fill to senseless, the dreams fade and die. And free and easy does the blood-red wine come flowing from the glass to your veins. Silent in the garden square, you're resting from the troubles of your mind. And although the sun is burning brightly, oh, within the garden is either sleeping or is dead. And through the afternoon the buzzing bees do harmonize with the rushing city light.
There we go, Bert Jansch and John Renbourn there with a track called Soho. Moving into the second half of the show, listen to some early Small Faces who's talked about the immediate label. I'm very pleased that obviously Dave's joined us in the studio, and we're going to have a bit of a chat about the Frogs, what you guys are currently up to, and play a track by the band as well. How's it been going? Seen you a few times downstairs lately, Dave.
Yeah, great fun. Yeah, it's good to, well, we've been doing it. We haven't sort of just got back together again, really. We've been sort of doing gigs for the last 3 years, 3 or 4 years.
Well, I found a cassette from
cassette, George, that's an old format.
2008.
I can do cassette.
So we were definitely doing stuff in here 2008. Yeah, so there was a little bit of a gap, wasn't there? But yeah.
But yeah, great fun. Yeah, it's all sort of seems to come back to life nicely, doesn't it?
Well, it was, I think by my calculations, I don't know what you make, it's been, did we do our first gig in 94, was it?
20 years it's been.
So it was the back end of the year, but I think we've got to do something this year to sort of mark that. I mean, I've already started slinging a few bits up on YouTube.
We could break up again.
Yeah, there's a couple that's quite interesting that certainly I know...
Come back in another 10 years.
You're going to talk to John about the Small Faces convention that he puts on. It's like you're saying, John.
This is our 18th year.
Yeah, I mean, we were involved in the very start of that, but like John says, it's become part of the sort of London music calendar now. And I've got a couple of... I'll be interested if you can check that out at some point. Tell me if it was the second or third convention. I'll put a little video clip up of that and on YouTube, and also one of the 2013.
And if you wanted to see both those clips, if you go to the Shipful of Bombs website, www.sfob.co.uk/over to blog, you'll see the Harbour Bazaar listing there, and on this month's post you'll see some early pictures of the chaps, and equally there's a couple of videos both from those Small Faces conventions on there. That's right now on the website, so go take a look.
So in terms of plans for the year, I mean, we've still got to hatch a few really, but I think we've got to do something to market. Maybe recording some new stuff or some some original stuff. Or what I'd like to do. I don't know what you boys think, but maybe a night at the railway, maybe upstairs or something, where we just play all our own tunes, because I know people sort of know us for sort of knocking a load of high energy covers out and that, but we have had there's some writers in the band as well, and we've it isn't material we roll out that often, but maybe a night of that or something.
Well, I mean, I remember visiting. It must be 1998. Was it Toe Rag Studios? I remember you recording over there, putting a lot of stuff on there on that one.
That was about 2000, 2001.
Oh, was it?
A lot of original, a lot of our original tunes we recorded down there. I mean, we're going to play a track in a minute, which was recorded at Pathway Studios in Stoke Newington. That was with Liam Watson again, but that was a studio that was funded, I believe. Do you know anything about that, John? Pathway? I mean, Stiff Records used to use it, but I think it was wasn't it Arthur Brown's first record sort of financed it?
Possibly. I do know it was one that kind of people used to sort of pop in and out of. John Lennon was known to come and go. Drummer was... house drummer was Andy White, who was in...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The Beatles, Andy White.
First Beatles single,
Love Me Do, Andy White.
Yeah.
So, I didn't know that.
A real sort of game changer for me was after we spent a couple of... I think we spent... did we spend a weekend there doing a weekend mixing it? That sounds a bit long for us.
Which, this record or the Toe Rag one?
No, the one at Pathway.
It was something like that. It was pretty quick recording it.
Yeah.
And I can't remember mixing it. But
anyway,
I think
it was a
quick.
bloody tiny little studio, but it had such an incredible vibe. And one of my favourite albums, that first Damned album, was recorded in there.
Yeah.
And when I actually came away after spending a weekend in there and listened to that album, it was just astonishing. You could see everything and feel it, and you knew why it sounded the way it did because of the way it was recorded.
It was recorded very quickly. I think it took about 20 minutes.
Yeah. But
second one took even longer.
Sorry, can I just say I'm such a fan of Matt McNamara. He keeps throwing these Ruttles riffs at me, and I think it's now going to be a touchdown for the show.
For anyone who hasn't seen it, you'll have to watch it.
To be fair, I've had a very, very busy old day actually. I've had both tea and biscuits. There we go.
What's
the track going to play for us, chaps?
Well, I want to play our version of Beatles' Rain. I mean, Dave arranged this. There's got a sort of 3/4 bit in it, and if you listen closely at the beginning, get the level up at the beginning, George, because it's got Dave punching a Fender amp to get the reverb sort of springs to leap into life, which was a nice little touch.
There we go. Back from 2001, recorded the Pathway.
1998.
I thought you said that. Okay.
That was a Toe Rag record.
Let me just try this one again. Right. Back to 1998. This is the Frogs. This is Rain. So was that your arrangement on there, Dave?
Well, arrangement. I'm going to get old Alan Price about it. No, I put in a bit that went dum 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 in the middle of it.
That's an arrangement, Dave.
No, the Beatles kind of arranged it. We just played it.
I didn't hear a harmonica on the Beatles version, though.
No. Well, that might have been my idea, but
there
that's
you
not
go.
a really arrangement.
Credit
No, but
where credit's due, David.
it was a bit of
due.
it was obviously a team thing with Liam at the helm on the desk, putting all that brilliant tape phasing on and all that kind of stuff.
Because I remember visiting you guys at Toe Rag later on and just being absolutely amazed by what was upstairs in there. And at the same time, just a real sort of mad scientist at the controlled kind of vibe that he seemed to be sort of putting out as well.
I don't know what you two think, but I thought we had a better time at Pathway, didn't we? It was sort of bounds in a better place at the time anyway. Even though it was Liam doing it, we didn't get on quite as well with him in that studio. Like second at Toe Rag, it didn't quite go as smoothly, does it? But Pathway, it seemed to just go down in no time, didn't it?
I think that, like you say, it was a lot to do with where we were all at the time as well.
Yeah, just quite enjoyable experience.
It was because that came. We were after working with Liam, and we'd heard about his studio, which was in Shoreditch at the time, the original Toe Rag studio. So we were after him, trying to work with him. And when we finally got hold of him, he said, "Oh, I've just shut that down, and I'm moving to where he is now, which is in Homerton, isn't it?"
Yeah.
And he said, "But I know this good little place. We're going there, and I'll go in there," and which was Pathway in Stoke Newington. So we went up, picked him up from his place in the East End, and showed us how to get there, and that's the result of it, really.
Very nice too. Well, gentlemen, really delighted to come in as guests this evening. Always very delighted to see you playing as well, and look forward to the 20 year anniversary gig as well, if that's all right. So cool. Moving on with the show specifically, we're moving into a kind of classic album section. As I say, we've been doing a bit of a history of chronology and the story of the Small Faces, and we now have them on the immediate label. And I think realistically, their kind of opus came out in 1968, which is the Ogden's Nut Gone Flake album, beautifully packaged, notoriously packaged. And I just want to play a couple of tracks of that, and then we can have a talk around the opinions and the views and the thoughts as we kind of go through. This is the opening track.
the blessing in the afterglow of you. Love is all around me, everywhere. Love has come to touch my soul with someone who really cares. No one can deny us. People who once passed me by will turn their heads round. I'm happy just to be with you and loving you the way I do. There's everything I need to know, just resting in the afterglow of your night. Yes, you have always been here, feeling deep inside, a feeling that I could not see or touch or try to hide. My love is in and around you. Hey, I bless the day that I found you. So listen, baby, I'm happy just to be with you and loving you the way I do. There's everything I need to know, just resting in the afterglow of your night. I know you feel it, baby. Love is like a voice in my head, keeps turning around the things that we I'm happy just to be with you and loving you the way I do. There's everything I need to know, just resting in the afterglow of your night. Oh, now I'm
There we go, 2 tracks from Ogden's Nut Gone Flay. Came out in 1968 by the Small Faces. We had the opening instrumental, and then on to, if you don't mind me saying, which is my favourite Small Faces tune, and I think many other people's as well, and that's Afterglow, with again another example of that kind of cracking sort of soul vocal. I mean, John, this is very different from the sort of Decca sounds particularly.
Yeah,
It sounds like it had a lot more studio time than they've had before.
That's the whole thing that appealed to the Small Faces about Immediate Records, was the fact that they were going to spend a lot more time in the studio. That's what they wanted to do. But the other big thing about the change to Immediate was the fact that Ronnie came of age. I mean, when you look at the first Immediate album, Ronnie wrote and sings lead vocals on 50% of the tracks,
Right.
which was never the case previously. And Ogden's Nut Gone Flake, was predominantly Ronnie. It was predominantly Ronnie's song, Ronnie's story. Happiness Stan, basically, the name comes from his father, and his quest to find the missing side of the moon.
I mean, it's a strange listen for me again, actually, because it's an album obviously known for a very, very long time, as I think we all have. Really, it's kind of a real touchstone. I think most people I know's kind of lives and what have you. But I think listening to it again this week particularly, it is such a, and this is a football analogy box, so you can use this one.
Yes,
it is very much an album of two halves.
Go on, then.
Very
There you
much
go.
so,
For me, I feel that the second half, the Stanley Unwin stuff's lovely, and I know Stanley Unwin. I remember the photograph of you and him together, Pat, which was taken at one of the Small Faces conventions. Lovely stuff, but I think it feels a bit. It doesn't seem as strong as the A side. Do you know? It feels a little bit. For me, it would be. I was kind of thinking about this one yesterday. I would have. interested to see whether that would have worked as an EP on its own in almost like Magical Mystery Tour kind of style. So you've got the second half where it is such a change of tone, such a change of style.
I do actually find what you're saying interesting, because I mean my experience is the fact that the Ogden's album is all about side 2, and side 1 was the fillers, if you like. You know, that's the way it comes across over the years. Yeah, obviously, you know.
I'm not saying I dislike it. Far from it. I mean, in terms of, it's something I remember, working in an art shop years ago, and this was one of the ones. This was the album that we pretty much have on a loop. So I know it well, and I like the second side. But I think it'd be interesting to hear it standing up on its own. Just saying the way that.
Yeah, I mean, it could have gone on an EP, as I say. I think it only runs for about 25-30 minutes. You know, so probably less than that. Just side 2. It could have gone on an EP, but. I don't necessarily agree myself. Remember all my own taste. I think side 2 is where it's at, and they should really have progressed with that. I mean, they could have taken Ogden's on the road, taken Stanley Unwin with them and a brass section. And it would have worked. I mean, they didn't seem to think it would work, but it would have worked.
I was reading somewhere, wasn't there a television performance of it or something? Or
Colour Me Pop, yeah.
And they did the whole, I don't know whether they played live or they minded up or what they did really.
Well,
but I know.
It was live vocals, but to backing tracks. But I mean, the fact that if they'd have taken it out on the road with Stanley and a brass section, I feel as if the band could have gone on from there. They always seem to think that it was a difficult thing to do, but 40 years later, you got the Small Fakers, a very good Small Faces tribute band, have in fact done that. They've been out on the road doing Ogden's with the brass and with Stanley Unwin's son John doing the narration, and it worked beautifully. Absolutely worked beautifully. So, if the Small Fakers can do it, the Small Faces could have done it. And I think that could have been their saviour.
What was the critical reaction of it at the time?
The critic,
it was number 1 for 6 weeks, wasn't it?
Yeah, great. Everybody. Remembering back to the time, I remember buying the album, the Round album. Everything about it was considered original at the time, and even down to the sleeve, the round sleeve.
It's a beautifully designed
tobacco
sleeve.
tin, yeah. I mean, the guys that worked in the record shops hated it because it used to keep rolling off the shelf. but it was unique. Yeah, probably the first round sleeve. I don't know of one previous to that. There may well have been, but no, everything about it to me was new. That's where they were going. I mean, Spike Milligan was the guy that they originally wanted for the narration, and Spike was approached and turned them down.
Right.
And Ronnie had recently seen this guy Stanley Unwin on a TV advert, doing an advert for Gal's Honey. Stanley Unwin. They approached Stanley. Stanley jumped at it. He'd never heard of the Small Faces, but he jumped at it. He loved it. He loved it. He loved working with them. He only worked with them like probably a couple of days at most. Putting his part in, and he done the Colour Me Pop thing with them as well. But Stanley loved it. But. You guys all sitting around me are probably much too young to remember Stanley in his heyday. I mean, back in the 60s and 70s, he was a household name. He'd be on all these sort of chat shows, of the time.
Oh, I'm older than you think, John.
I mean, he was quite a celeb at the time, and he'd done things like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and a couple of Carry On films.
Yeah.
So he was quite a well-known sort of guy, and it worked great with Stanley Unwin. I mean, I cannot imagine it being any better with Spike Milligan.
No, we may digress on Milligan. I'm not a fan of your man Milligan particularly, but Stanley Unwin very much so. But no, don't get me wrong. I think it's a great album. I've really enjoyed listening to it again, but it's just in terms of very much where it is so different on the sort of second side, and it is for me again that dichotomy in the Small Faces where you have got for me on the front end of it, whereas to get Afterglow, such a great soul vocal, and then when you got things like what's the
Happy Days Toy Town, where inside too is a fairy tale, isn't it?
Absolutely.
That's what it's supposed to be, and don't know, for me it works.
I'm not saying it doesn't, John. I'm just saying I'll be interested in it.
You want to say it doesn't
work for one person, it's not necessarily going to work for somebody else.
I'm defending myself. No, I just thought it was just had in my head in terms of an EP in and of itself. I thought,
but they thought that was it. They couldn't go any further. But as I say, had they taken it on the road, they could have done it, and they perhaps could have progressed.
I suppose it was kind of like the last for the Beatles towards the end of their touring time, '66, where they'd just done Revolver, and they were going out and they weren't doing any tunes off of Revolver, and that's August '66, and they're still opening the show with Long Tall Sally. And I think the Small Faces kind of had the same, not problem, but
Didn't know that, Matt. That's an interesting stat.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth kind of thinking about as a comparison. And then the Small Faces were going out and doing Shake after having just put out, Ogden's.
Yeah. I mean, they were doing less gigs anyway during their immediate years, but the set didn't change that much at all. You know, as I say, the most of the hit singles weren't in the club set anyway. You know, but things like Shake and that was still there, and they were doing like old Rufus Thomas covers and James Brown covers, some of which they never recorded.
Right, which is a long way from Happiness Stan and the Moon.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, had they taken Ogden's on the road, it would have had to have been as Ogden's Nut Gone Flake. You couldn't really intermix that with Rufus Thomas.
Right.
You know, but
it's interesting as you say though with that one who's saying the Small Fakers doing it, because if they, obviously, without being obviously people aren't, not everyone's alive in the band now, but you can almost hear so many bands coming back and where they will do a classic album all the way through. What a perfect choice that would have been to do that.
They couldn't sort of, I mean, they did Tommy, but I mean, there's so many sort of Who projects that sort of fell by the wayside that have been sort of revived since, things like Lifehouse and things like that, Quadrophenia, because they were sort of maybe they felt it was too ambitious at the time. I don't know to do live.
Pete Townsend has said that Ogden's did have a certain amount of influence on him coming up with Tommy, because Tommy was a year after Ogden's, and obviously the storyline's completely different and whatever, but just the fact of what it was, I think. I don't think Ogden's was the first of its type, because the Pretty Things done SF Sorrow sort of a year before that. But no, I think it was a pretty progressive thing to do, albeit a fairy tale.
I think it's interesting. Again, we're going to play one more track from that, which is again I think from the BBC Sessions one. Probably the most well-known track to out, other than the by the Small Faces. It probably gets played more than ever, but I've never heard this version of it, and this is a live version of Lazy Sunday from the BBC Sessions by the Small Faces from Ogden's Nut Gone Flake.
To get on with me neighbours, they make it really clear they've got no room for raiders. They stop it moving, they bang on the wall. Bang on it now! It's no good at all, I'll get lazy Sunday.
Love the bells at the end of that, John.
Okay, yeah. I mean, how that track come about was the fact that Holly's lead vocalist, Alan Clark, had criticised Steve in the music press, saying that he always sang with a false American accent. Steve read that, was really angry, and there's the result, Lazy Sunday. This will show him.
Yeah,
And
I think it doesn't take Henry Higgins to place that one. So what happened to the band at this point, John?
Yeah, well, I mean, they didn't think they could, that they were so pleased with Ogden's, they were over the moon with it, and that they didn't think that they could come up with anything better, basically. At that time, how are we going to follow this was the big question asked, but how the breakup come about was the fact that Steve wanted to bring Peter Frampton from the Herd into the band, and Peter started working with them on and off. I actually saw a gig with the 5-piece Small Faces with Peter in October '68 myself in a place in Brentwood, and it worked. It really worked. I mean, Peter pretty much stood at the back and played some really tasteful sort of lead guitar, and in this particular gig, Steve was sort of able to sort of concentrate even more on the vocals, even though he'd always managed vocals and guitar perfectly well before. Steve wanted Peter in the band, the others said no. I think they liked Peter, and I think they could see that Peter could bring something musically to the band. I honestly believe it was a matter of they were earning no money, and why split everything 5 ways instead of 4?
Yeah, I think he's just a little bit too tall for me, though.
There we go. So the band splits up.
Yeah, they the famous New Year's Eve gig, 31st of December 1968, playing at Alexandra Palace, London. Steve has got the ump before they even start for whatever reason. Halfway through the gig, there's a few sound problems. Steve throws his guitar on the ground, storms off stage. The rest of the band carry on and finish the set, but that was basically the beginning of the end.
That was
the beginning of the end. I mean, the band basically split up that night. They did have a few gigs that they were contracted to do early in '69, and they did do those, but by all effects, the band broke up New Year's Eve.
Well, yeah. I think that obviously it carries on from there. Obviously, Humble Pie's formed quite quickly.
Yeah, Humble Pie. I mean, the good thing that come out of that breakup was the fact that we got 2 great bands out of it. And I mean, in the Faces, for example, I mean, it took 2 people of the calibre of Rod Stewart and Ronnie Wood to replace Steve.
And I'm a huge Rod Stewart fan in terms of it as a vocal thing, going back to the Jeff Beck albums. And
great, the Jeff Beck band, fantastic. But the fact that it took 2 people to replace Steve, if you like, is a great compliment to Steve.
That's a huge compliment. Again, one of the things which I think is interesting with the Humble Pie thing is, again, change of sound. And we're going to play Black Coffee by Humble Pie in a moment, but equally the change of look. I mean, we've gone from talking about earlier, the whole mod thing, very into the clothes, and again, I think the aesthetic and the look of the band is always as important as the sound. Can't deny.
Think so as well.
But there's a real stripped down look to him as well.
Definitely, but it was 1969, 1970. That was just the way sort of clothes were going. There were very few people still wearing the tonic mohair suit in 1969.
But there was some wonderful Regency stuff and some kind of dandy things going on there
mod,
as well.
Mod went psychedelic, psychedelic mod, as per the sort of clothes that they were wearing during the Ogden sort of period.
Absolutely.
And they still considered that mod. Perhaps a lot of, the tonic mohair mods would look at that and say that's hippie.
Pat is the final word on all things mod, if you don't mind me saying. He basically, absolutely. If he says it's okay, it's okay by me.
1968. Were those clothes?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I thought you were on about the Humble Pie look.
Yeah. Well, no, the Humble Pie thing. I mean, by 69, 70, everybody was growing the hair.
Everybody was going heavy. And
going very heavy.
You can hear that in Black Coffee by Humble Pie.
Go on then.
Nice link.
Nice link.
Black coffee is my name. Black coffee, not a thing. Black coffee, freshly ground and fully packed. Hot black coffee. Black coffee. That's where it's at. Mean it. Way back yonder, but I don't know where. See, I got to move out before I
There you go, Black Coffee by Humble Pie, which came about, what was that, 69, 70, I think that came out, I'm not sure.
A little bit later than that. Was it about, yes, 71.
Oh, okay, no problem, because they became a big, there's a lot of live stuff out there for them as well, isn't there? Really?
Yeah, I mean, the first two Humble Pie albums were actually on Immediate.
Right.
You know, but by the time of Black Coffee, you know, they'd moved over to A&M.
Right.
Yeah, great track. As you can see from that, I mean, a lot of people sort of wrongly class Humble Pie as almost metal, but as you can hear from that track, Steve was still the soul man, wasn't he?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, it changes the vibe on there as well, but it's got much more sort of bluesy in that one. It's a thicker sort of sound as well. That's a bang on heavy, Pat, which is something I've been saying to you for years and years and years. The Frogs need to do a one-off show where you announce you go heavy.
Well, 2014, you never know. We did it. We pulled it off in Do Ya, didn't we? 3-piece, went heavy.
There you go. Very nice too. So, John, I know you obviously with your record label. There's a lot of you have access to release a lot of small Marriott.
Yeah,
I can't say it. Steve Marriott solo material and stuff.
We've got a company called Whopping Wolf, and we actually represent the Steve Marriott estate these days in conjunction with Steve's widow, Tony. It's basically we do promotions, publications, and a record label. And the record label, Whopping Wolf Records, is basically a Steve Marriott collector's label, if you like. You know, we've actually got 8 titles out at the moment. They're all double CDs. Well, the first one's actually a 3 CD set, and it's basically bringing to the world lots of Steve Marriott rarities that people would otherwise never get the chance to hear. You know, we've got access to lots of recordings from Steve's own studio. A lot of that stuff was done in the mid-70s, just after Humble Pie, and in my opinion, and a lot of fans' opinions, you know, I mean, the quality of a lot of that stuff is as good as anything he ever done. You know, there's one particular track called Soldier, which Steve recorded in '76 with the Los Angeles Philharmonic Orchestra, would you believe? And it was actually touted as a possible single at the time.
Right.
It never came out as a single, and in fact the track disappeared because for about 30 years it was considered the holy grail amongst the Marriott fans. Soldier with the Los Angeles blah blah blah. You know, they couldn't get it. It just disappeared into thin air. Then about 10 years ago, Steve's manager of the time, a guy called Laurie O'Leary, unfortunately passed away. He was a good friend of mine, passed away, and he left me a load of Steve masters, and that one was amongst it. And one of the very last words he said to me was, "Make sure the world gets to hear these tracks."
Oh, John, you've done him proud. Let's hear the track.
Let's just listen to the vocal on this track. Awesome. No, it's.
You got the
I'm queued up Paul Weller in it.
Oh, that's
okay.
different.
That comes in a minute. Yeah, no, with
Well, we're going to have to. We'll change it around at the moment. We'll do the Soldier. We're going to have as a finale, John. So one of the other things I know you're sort of involved with as well, in terms of the memorial concerts for Ronnie Lane and obviously the Small Faces tribute stuff and what have you as well.
Yeah, sure. Before I go on to those, we do a Whopping Wolf glossy magazine, or a fanzine, if you like. Now, we now do 5,000 of those worldwide. Now, that's probably the biggest self-published fanzine in the country. I can't imagine there's another one that does 5,000.
And that's at www.whoppingwolf.com.
Whopping Wolf, the magazine's called The Darlings of Whopping Wolf Laundrette. It's a Small Faces and related magazine covering all the offshoot bits and pieces that all the members have done over the years. And as I say, that's available through subscription or whatever on through the website whoppingwolf.com.
And all that, you basically looking on your site there, obviously all the CDs you said, all doubles,
all the CDs,
kind of available as well.
all the CDs, books, lots of memorabilia. You know, we touched on the Small Faces conventions earlier. I mean, the first one of those was in 1997, and that was at the time just a one-off gig for local fans around the London area. You know, this 18 years on, we're still doing them. You know, we've outgrown the Ruskin Arms. We're now in the West End of London, and we literally have fans from all over the world.
I think you've done. If you've done what we're saying, you're keeping. You've made the band bigger now than I think they probably were at the time.
Well, I do believe in a lot of respects the band are bigger now than they were in 1966.
And we take our hat off to you, John Hellier, for making that kind of happen.
Thank you very much.
So with the track you wanted to sort of play, we're sort of playing here. This is. Are we back to Soldier now, George? You like your style?
Okay, going back on that. Yeah, as I say, this is Steve Marriott, Los Angeles Philharmonic Orchestra, and an awesome vocal. Song written incidentally by Cockney rocker Joe Brown.
There you go. First British rockabilly, if you don't mind me saying, Pat, as well. Let's play the track, Georgie.
Soldier.
Just look at me now, I'm a soldier. Don't ask me what I'm fighting for. There's nothing new, there's nothing changed. And if I told you the same old stories just once more, would it be strange? Is it strange? And I say, my father's son, and in this so much a product and a bearer of my old man's pride. Or would you rather see me, touch me, or lay a flower and say how much I wished he understood the meaning while he had the time? I'm a soldier. Don't you ask me what I'm fighting for. There's nothing lost, ain't nothing gained. Well, you asking me, you borrow my name for the lame excuses, play no more. You know that's a shame.
John, thanks for sharing that one with us.
Great track. Yeah, great track.
And that's available because you're good self.
That's available on an album called Rainy Changes, along with 39 other tracks. www.whoppingwolf.com.
No problem. And again, quick word on some of the more, because one of the things we try and do on Harbour Bazaar, particularly when we're looking at, I don't know, this is, we're doing very much a band special on this one particularly, is looking at, influences and inspirations now. Obviously, there's some of the bands that Pat's mentioned earlier and what have you, obviously Weller Jam, obviously Oasis and all these kind of, particularly that sort of from 70s forward sort of British sound. I mean, obviously, Small Faces has been a huge kind of influence on. And
very much so, yeah. I mean, on the 20th of April 2001, which was 10 years exactly after the day that Steve tragically died in a house fire, Whopping Wolf put on a Steve Marriott memorial show at the London Astoria. This show featured a whole host of big names that were all Steve Marriott fans and all sort of done it for minimal expenses only. And people like Paul Weller, Noel Gallagher. We had Humble Pie. We reformed Humble Pie. Obviously, no Steve, but we had both guitarists, Peter Frampton and Clem Clemson, playing together. Up until 2 days before the show, they'd never even met. It was just an amazing show that sold out 3 weeks previous to that, and just absolutely awesome. I mean, the place was really rocking. And another little tidbit that Steve would really have loved was the fact that we broke the bar takings record that night at the Astoria. And 10 years after that, the manager, a guy called Chris Alexander, rang me up, I think this was in 2010, and said, "John, they're demolishing the building next week, and I just wanted to let you know that record stood right to the end."
There you go. Good stuff. Good
Steve
stuff.
would have loved that.
So
We've absolutely loved it.
So what's the track we're having
this
from
is
here?
Paul Weller and Noel Gallagher with Kenny Jones and Ian McLagan playing. I think we're going to do is "I'm Only Dreaming." Oh, great version.
If the smile on my face doesn't mean much anymore, then it's all been just a waste of time. So won't you close your door? But when I look into your eyes, I feel there's still something there. Something's all I need to hold on to. I can lie to myself. I still care. I still care about the way. Oh, and the little things you say. Won't you please come out today? I'm only dreaming. What's we can do when you're nowhere? Got nobody to hold on to, but I'll keep on smiling, crying. See me walking down the street, turn your head and walk away. 'Cause by now you ought to know how I feel. There's no more, I'm only dreaming. I'm only dreaming. Hey! Oh, baby, said I'm only dreaming, yeah. I'm only dreaming, child.
So we're coming quite close to the end of the show. I mean, the clock always ticks by, and but we haven't really had a chance really to talk that much about Ronnie Lane either, John.
Well, after that, successful sellout Ronnie Lane, Steve Marriott Memorial Show, plans were underway for a tribute to Ronnie Lane, obviously, But I mean, how do we top that Steve Marriott show? How do we top it? We go to the Royal Albert Hall. So we did top it. In fact, we sold the Royal Albert Hall out, 5,500 people. Pete Townsend, Ronnie Wood, Paul Weller again, Ocean Colour Scene, and lots of other people paying tribute to Ronnie Lane. A 3 DVD set of the concert is actually in production at the moment, and hopefully will be out very shortly.
When do you think people will be
Angel Air? Hopefully by the summer. It's taken 10 years. It's taken a lot of money and a lot of editing to get to this stage. The politics have been very difficult. Lots of people on there, lots of big names, all on different labels. Very, very complicated. But we think we've got over the problems and expect a DVD from that sellout show sort of this summer, hopefully.
Look forward to it, John.
Yeah,
Look
and
forward
I'd
to
just
it.
like to also quickly mention the fact that again back in 2004, myself and Paolo Hewitt wrote the Steve Marriott biography, All Too Beautiful. I mean, 10 years on, that's still in print. We're in our 3rd edition at the moment, and it's, even though I say so myself, pretty much the definitive story.
Well, as I say, the details of that as well
Yeah.
we've put on the Harbour Bazaar blog.
Yeah,
so
Record Collector gave it a 5-star review, and they're very tight with their 5-star reviews, And a Ronnie Lane biography is to follow. That's in research stage at the moment.
Wendy, and we've not had that much chance to do much on Ronnie Lane, but I know the next show we'll play a couple of tracks on there specifically as a way as a carryover from this.
It's great.
Gentlemen, we're coming to the end of the show, and that leaves us into that sort of slightly daunting moment where he's been slightly quiet for the last hour. But we always have under the fez the box review. Boxy, you've sat quietly at the sidelines.
I have
You've kept
sat
your powder dry.
quietly.
Tell us what you have to say.
Well, I remember hearing about the Faces because I think you saw us play. I was in a band. I lived in East London.
I'm very, very familiar with your
You
band.
saw our first gig at the Cock in East Ham.
I upset you afterwards by telling you were speeding up and slowing down on the drums. If you remember right.
I'll still do that until we played. But yes, we were all. Well, I'm from Essex, but the rest
Warrington,
of the
Boxing,
Warrington,
Warrington.
indeed, but the rest of the band were from East London, and Pat was the singer. And I remember we were rehearsing in Leighton, Midland Road, underneath the arches, and Pat didn't show; he was a singer, and then Marsh announced that the man had died in the house fire. And we went round to see Pat. And I went round for days and days after, and he was just in mourning. I'd never seen. I remember going to see him, and he was just in tears with his mum crying, his sister crying, that somebody would mean so much to him. And he'd never met him. None of the family had ever met him. But for all the band, but mostly for Pat, I think there was this sense of this guy's one of us. He's from our area. We know he's us. He represents us in the way that I don't know. Imagine some kind of Gandhi represents India or Mandela or just something so greater than themselves.
Yeah. Steve never forgot his roots.
Yeah.
Never forgot his East End roots.
Yeah, and he was so adored. I guess I listened to it. Some of the kind of chunkier stuff I like. Some of the Cockney type of stuff doesn't really work for me. But I can see it means an awful lot. I mean, talking about selling at the Albert Hall. So generally, I'm asked, do I, in my style and his purge, do I allow things to stay or do I allow things to go? And I will show benevolence today for the good of all.
You're a merciful God, my friend.
Oh no.
So it stays, baby.
It stays. It
like
stays.
Your style, like your style. What can I say? Quick round of Ripley in the room for the box report. There we go. So coming to the end of the show. Here we are, Harbour Bazaar, ship full of bombs. What can I say but thank you to all my guests. Boxy, you brought a tear to my eye, which makes a pleasant change. Pat, what can I say? Thank you very much. Appreciate the company, appreciate the contribution.
Pleasure sitting here tonight.
And I really look forward to the 20 years of the Frogs, if you don't mind me saying. Looking forward to that show, and hopefully you may let me play a tune or two in the background.
Indeed.
On the pulpit particularly. And Matt, what can I say? Superb. Thanks so much for
Thanks
coming in.
Yeah, thanks for nice to see you in action, and just like to say goodbye, load.
There you go. Now that wasn't a lucky reference. So there we go. John, once again, thank you very much for coming. Really, really appreciate your contribution.
Yeah,
and
thank you for the invite.
Genuinely, I think some of the rarities you brought along and the BBC versions and what have you, been a real joy to hear. So thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, let's hope that some of the listeners, appreciate some of the later stuff as much as they
absolutely
early Small Faces classics.
Well, basically, you can. In terms of the show, this is going to be available as a podcast as of tomorrow. You can get that from www.sfob.co.uk/podcasts. Look up Harbour Bazaar, where you can see our shows and obviously all the other shows that are going out on the station as well. Once again, thanks to everybody. Huge thanks to Dave Dulake for coming in, sitting in on the show, and at the same time allowing us to use the studio upstairs here at the Railway. So for me, Stephen Hastings, this has been Harbour Bazaar. Thank you very much indeed.
smiles melt in the